Hey, how's it going? Welcome to the Football Diary podcast. This is Mike, Myles and Dave here with all the latest Premier League action of Game Week 31, where the biggest jeopardy seems to be in the top 8 of the league, especially after Aston Villa beat Nottingham Forest 2-1. That will be obviously our main focus this week, I think, especially when you consider Villa's chase for the top 4 and Nottingham Forest looking in jeopardy maybe of losing their place. We'll have that discussion, I think, and probably start there straight away, especially since we've got Myles here in the room with us in his Villa colours, ready to be let out and unleashed and talk about how great Villa have been in the last few games, in the last few weeks even. It's been a fantastic run for Villa, hasn't it, Myles? And I think it's something we've talked about weekly, it feels, in every competition you've competed in, how the excitement is beginning to build. But I think as teams around you in the league especially start to kind of fall away and you win big games like this, it feels much more, realistic now that you can catch the likes of Forest and maybe get top 4, top 5 and keep that Champions League momentum going, doesn't it? How are you feeling after this game?
Yeah, ecstatic. It's such a good result for us after a really good week. I mean, last week I was on the podcast talking about how, yes, I was excited by Villa's form, but the run-in that we have towards the end of the season is really difficult. And it's a lot of the teams around us that are fighting for the same sort of spaces. The good part of that is when you do get a positive result, you're taking points off your competition. And we've managed to do that twice in a week now. Beating Brighton and then following it up with beating Forest is huge, particularly when you consider the rotation that Emery put into this game. 8 changes and you're still able to win a game of this magnitude and rest players with one of the biggest games in the club's modern history come in this week. That's a fantastic thing. And yeah, we are right in the heart of the conversation again now. And there was a few weeks ago where I was a bit worried that we weren't going to be able to put anything into the league campaign and everything was going to be on these cup competitions. Now it's about balancing all three. And we know that Emery's pretty good at doing that.
Yeah, I think you were touched on it there with the rotation of the squad. 8 changes is a cause for concern, I think, for most clubs, but you looked at that starting 11 and it was still really strong. And Dave, I think that's a sign of where Villa have kind of really nailed it almost. This, I don't want to speak too soon really and jinx it, but they've nailed this kind of challenge, haven't they, of competing on all fronts and way better than most clubs have or have attempted to in previous seasons. And it puts them in this position where they can go into this Forest game and go 2 goals up within the first 15, 20 minutes and not coast, but almost look a little bit more comfortable for the rest of the game. Now, Myles will probably disagree. The second half was a bit tense, I'll be honest, when Forest started to get back into it. But Villa, for the most part, I think looked in control, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, very in control. And first off, actually, I think a lot of people will be surprised how comfortable they made it for themselves at time and how much pressure they managed to put on that that Forest back line. Obviously, we mentioned a couple of absentees in that side, but I just thought that the way that they used those attacking players, Morgan Rogers, I thought, particularly in the first half, I thought it was outstanding and just really kind of bullied that Forest defence. But yeah, this is the first time, isn't it, in so long, is it, that they've managed to win 7 games, is it, consecutively in all competitions? I think the last time they did that, they were in the Championship. So, I mean, it must be a very sort of strange feeling for Villa fans to have this kind of consistency and they're going on. But I mean, I said to you both last night, I think it's a good sign that, to be honest, especially in the second half. I mean, I made it known to you, I thought they didn't play that well. But it's always a good sign that you're winning when you're not playing particularly well and you're grinding results out. And that's exactly what they managed to do in the second.
Yeah, it was tense at moments, wasn't it? Especially when, obviously, Jota's goal went in and I think Murillo hit the bar, didn't he? There was a few tense moments where Ilanga maybe on the break should have done better. He did it to United in midweek, didn't he? And you were like, is he going to do it again? But Villa held firm, stayed relatively calm, I think, even though you probably weren't, Myles. But the quality of the goals, I think, first of all, let's just pay kind of some kind of respect to the finish from Morgan Rogers and the ball from Tielemans for the first goal. That's before we get onto the second goal. The first goal was just beautiful, wasn't it? What a passage of play.
Yeah, the touch to bring it into his stride as well is perfect. It couldn't have been any better. And then the power that he gets behind it just means that Sells doesn't stand a chance. And we are talking about one of the best goalkeepers in the league this season. I think Villa were really good at exploiting the space in Forest's kind of changing system. I know that Forest have rotated between a back 4 and back 3 at various points in the season. And obviously they're not helped by the fact that they had Moreno missing through his parent club kind of loan clause. And that meant that they had to bring Morato in quite an unfamiliar position, and it meant that down that left-hand side, Villa were exploiting space constantly. Like Martin looked so dangerous, as we saw for the second goal, but Rodgers as well found and occupied that space just inside the channel. And that's where this run comes from. And Tielemans is always going to be able to pick a ball out like that. He's having such a good season. I think he's been so overlooked by so many as quietly having one of the players of the season for me. I think he's been excellent, and that's what Villa needed in that role when you lose Douglas Luiz. So yeah, that's really encouraging that we were still producing moments of that quality. And I know you said, like, we talk about the first goal, the second goal as well showed it, because Matson comes into the side, and for the first half in particular, when Villa were attacking more than Forest for the majority of it, he found himself so much space and the confidence to take anyone on. I mean, he turns Yates inside out for the second goal. That's again a really positive sign, because Luca Dean's a player that we've raved about on this podcast this season. So the options coming through and the clinical nature of the forwards, that's what Villa are trying to build. Defensively, we've been a bit suspect at times this season, but you've been able to rely on players like Rodgers for his output, and that's all you need, really.
Yeah, you said that second goal, Matson to Marlon. Marlon again scoring and making you forget who John Duran even was, I think, at this rate, and just happy you've got the money in the bank. But Dave, looking at Marlon scoring, obviously Asensio and Rashford playing superbly as well. We have to ask the question, don't we? And I hate to kind of be hyperbolic about it, but it feels like one of those January transfer windows where you go, that's how it's done, that's what you need to do. It's such a smart set of players and the right players for the right situation Villa are in, isn't it?
Definitely. And I think you looked at it before, was it December time? I think they had a little bit of a rough period just around Christmas. I think those additions have come in timely, really. If you look at the run they've gone on now, essentially, I think the way that they can approach games now is completely different. They have those options there where they can actually afford to rest players. And if you look at, we'll speak about the PSG game, but I think that now it gives them that choice of, I think there's quality and depth rather than just numbers. And you look at some of the players, obviously they've let go over the last year. Now they've arguably got two teams that they can put out that are very good quality. And I think it's come at a perfect time for them, because if you look at the run, we mentioned it last week, didn't we? There's some of the games that have got coming up. I think they've got Newcastle, which, let's be honest, that if they win that, they're in a very good position. Then I just think that, to be honest, if you look before Christmas, I thought I struggled to see them getting top 4 or top 5. And I'm sure Myles probably thought the same.
I'll let you interject there, Myles.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a period where the business in January seemed quite quiet as well around what we needed. We were screaming out for defensive reinforcements, and we only got Disasi last minute and Garcia as well. And then all of a sudden these deals for Rashford and Asensio become available once Duran's moved on. And yeah, as good a player as John Duran is, and he'll go on to have an excellent career, I'm sure he won't remain in Saudi for the duration of it. The additions we've been able to make by moving him on have made us a much better side. We have got a lot in our arsenal now to be able to break teams down. And weirdly, it has provided us with more defensive stability. Of course, we are relying on the fact that injuries have kind of come to an end, like Torres is fit again. Mings has been amazing since he's come back and really played a huge part in sorting out our defence. We're not conceding anywhere near as many goals since he's been back in the side. But I think also having the attack in play and giving teams so much to worry about on the back foot means that we are worrying about less defensively as well, just by its very nature. And in this game, they almost invited the opposite on themselves, because we've seen Forest this season, I think they average about 40% possession in every game. Well, Villa gave them just under 50 in this one and said, well, go on then. We don't need to press the issue in the second half. We're already leading this game, and we're not going to offer you the space in the counter-attack that you had in the first half. And it worked perfectly. That's why I said to Dave, I felt Villa controlled the second half better than it maybe looked, because yes, they weren't holding on to the ball as much, but I genuinely think that was part of the plan, because we know what Forest can do when they sit deep and then break. So you'd rather let them come onto you a little bit. And I think Villa are being smart in the way they're developing as a side by adding those attacking reinforcements, by solidifying the back line and taking every game as they need to. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I tell you what though, this result really doesn't shake up the Champions League places. and what that looks like in the table. And I said in my intro, didn't I? The top 8 is becoming probably the only interesting part of the table now. Now so many things have been decided, but for Forest, kind of pulls them into the conversation as to whether they can even hold on to third, doesn't it? And obviously Villa now in 6th, just behind Man City. The draw did brilliantly for Villa, didn't it? City drawing to United, as did Chelsea as well, dropping points as well. The only real threat for me, or the biggest threat, I think, to Forest as well, is Newcastle, isn't it? They have got a couple of games in hand now, and the question remains whether they can get back into a good run of form now the Carabao Cup's out of the way. Now, the most informed team of that lot is still Aston Villa, arguably, isn't it? They've won 3 on the bounce now. They look good. But if Newcastle can win those 2 games in hand, Dave, suddenly the makeup of that top 4 chase looks completely different, doesn't it? It's in Newcastle's hands, essentially, isn't it?
It does, and it's a big if. There's no actually easy run, I think, for you look at every club in the top 4 or 5 places. I think there's quite a few tricky games still remaining, which makes it all the more exciting for us as fans and neutrals especially. And yeah, it is a fascinating one. I'd still fancy Newcastle and Villa, to be honest. I think they're probably the 2 favourites. I think to finish probably 4th and 5th at the minute. Before today, I thought maybe Man City would go on a run, and probably, but after that game today, just you've got to question their sort of what their intentions are, I think, really, because of the lack of energy that they showed. So I'd say that you look at, obviously, the run that Newcastle have, obviously winning that cup, they've had a massive boost from that. Obviously, Villa, the way they're looking at the minute, it's hard to look past them both. Chelsea are just on a massive downward spiral as well. So it's exciting times. I think.
Imagine that as a Champions League qualification. You've got Liverpool and Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, Aston Villa representing England in the Champions League next year. You love that.
I would love that.
That is
I would.
pure nostalgia, that is. Never mind Chelsea and City and his nouveau rich. That's fantastic.
Well, that's what Mourinho would say is football heritage, right? Let's speak about Nottingham Forest, shall we? I want to give Forest some assessment, really, not just this result, but obviously the midweek victory against Manchester United. Dave was like, they didn't play particularly brilliantly in our chats, and United probably could have taken something from the game. But how do you assess Nottingham Forest's remaining games and their chances of Champions League qualification now, Myles? Because I guess this is the first time we've looked down the table underneath them and thought, do you know what? There's some traction there, and that could get a little bit hairy for them. How are you feeling?
I still think they'll do it. And I think they've shown throughout the season, whenever there's questions asked of them, they've had answers. Not winning at Villa Park is not a crime. Only Arsenal have come to Villa Park and won this season in the league. So it is an acceptable result on this journey. And I mean, we say, okay, they didn't play as well as they have against Man United, whilst missing their main attacking threat and still winning the game. And that's amazing for Forest because, again, they have built a really solid foundation. In some of the defensive players that we know bring so much to this side against Villa really didn't help them. But generally speaking, I've not seen anything of this Forest team that's made me think, oh no, you might struggle towards the end of it. They don't look like they're running out of steam. They obviously have the FA Cup to think about as well, which will be an incredible occasion for them. And I do think, although the gap is getting smaller, we'll see it too inconsistent to really pose a massive threat. Because what you're relying on is, are the teams below them going to pick up more points than Forest? Forest might drop points. That's fine. But so will the teams underneath them. Newcastle definitely are the ones that are the biggest threat, I think. But there's 2 spaces. So Forest will claim one of them, definitely. I'd be amazed if they didn't.
I agree. I think their team, their first 11, is probably one of the strongest, I think, in that pack as well when they're all fit. And they've been very lucky with injuries so far this season, haven't they? And I think that's where a lack of intensity in their play helps. And when they do drop back, they're not doing as much running as the opposition. And you do find that the higher press teams do tend to get more injuries. Look at Bournemouth, for example. Look at Spurs. It really affects them. But Forest have kind of been okay. And yeah, you can tell there's a gaping hole in their attack, can't you, Dave? And the miss of Wood has been quite obvious. But I think to Forest's credit, they were kind of sucker punched in that first half an hour by Villa superbly. And they were kind of really all over the place defensively. But that comeback in the second half will give Nuno Espirito Santo some kind of hope, wouldn't it? That they've got that fight first of all. And they could have got another goal, I thought. I thought they were very unlucky to not take a point.
Yeah, I think what will be encouraging, I think, for me is they went 2-0 down. And if we're being honest, it looked like Villa could probably run away with it at the point. But they had a reaction. And obviously had those 2 really good opportunities in Elanga. that brilliant run. We thought he was going to do it again, but it just couldn't quite get the shot on target. And Hudson-Odoi obviously had that good opportunity as well. And you thought if one of those go in, it could have changed the momentum of the game. But I think in the second half, I think it would have been encouraging. I think the display that they showed, I thought they managed to dominate periods of the play, really put a lot of pressure on Villa, and Villa just really struggled to kind of play out their usual way they would. I know Myles said they obviously were comfortable with letting Forest have the ball. But if you listen to what Emre said after the game, he said he wasn't happy with the second half performance. Tactically, they need to be a lot better. But you've got to give a lot of credit there to Forest because they put them under so much pressure. Winning second balls, it was majority of it was all Forest, and although they just their finishing was so bad, they had so many opportunities really in and around the box where you just think get it on target, and they just really struggled. And I think that's where you miss your striker, isn't it? The likes of Chris Wood in and around those areas where if he's in the box, then any second balls, anything like that, he's there to pounce. And obviously they haven't got that in the minute. And I'm not sure how serious the injury is. And obviously Awoniyi as well is out as well now. It's not ideal for them, but it's just unfortunate. I think that second half coincided with Elanga's his outgoing as well, because I think that would have suited him perfectly the way that it was actually in the second half. I think they had that space, that little bit more space. I think Villa tied as well massively, if I'm being honest. I think that their schedule that they've had in Europe and everything, it looked like it really they struggled a little bit and maybe had one eye on midweek after going 2-0 up.
We'll leave it there.
Can I just say their goal as well made me laugh so much because Villa stopped playing because it was like they were confused. They thought Jota had done the defending for them. He robs the ball off, I think it's Anderson's toe, and you can see Martinez and Conte are like, wait, what? Where's he come from? What's he doing? And he just put it in the back of the net before anyone seemed to even react. Dave's right though, the lack of a clinical nature. I think it was Williams at one point.
Yeah.
Has the shot inside the box that I was convinced was it in the back of the net. And there was a lot of that. So when Dave was saying to me Forest have had a lot of chances, I thought, yeah, but I didn't feel that worried by any of them because they just didn't seem to be able to find the target. I think Martinez only made 2 saves, maybe 3 at push. So it wasn't a lot, really. So although they were knocking on the door, the quality of those chances just wasn't there, or the nature of the finish wasn't there. That would be the frustrating thing.
So let me just check my podcast checklist. We've had Villa chat, yeah. We've had Forest chat, yeah. Should we take the mick out of Liverpool for a bit? Should we do that now? That's next on the list, I think. Fulham 3, Liverpool 2. Now, while this might not put a dent in the title race, if there is still a title race, because Arsenal dropped points by drawing to Everton, seeing Liverpool to lose to Fulham is all the more kind of satisfactory when you see the quality of the goals. And I mean from Liverpool too. Alexis McAllister scored a fantastic opener, didn't he? But Fulham's goals, especially seeing Sessegnon, I think, on the score sheet for the equaliser, was superb. And they fought really hard for this win. And the possession stats will tell you, won't they, Myles, that Liverpool controlled the game. But the clinical nature of Fulham's goals kind of was the difference in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely was, along with quite calamitous defending from Liverpool, which we're not really used to. Now, I already can hear in my head, unfortunately, I have to admit, I am friends with some Liverpool fans. And they always talk about how we never talk about them on the podcast. And in a season where they have run away with the league, this may be the second time we've talked about them all year, and I think both will be after a loss. So I do apologise for that, but equally, it has to be said, this was a frustrating thing to watch for a Liverpool fan, surely. Fulham were there to punish them and were trying to take the game to them, which I think is really exciting from them, because their season kind of looked like it might be falling away to nothing. Get knocked out of the FA Cup, they look pretty much out of the race for Europe, and then all of a sudden they pull an amazing performance like this out of the bag. But there was definitely a bit of a helping hand, wasn't there? Kanate and Van Dijk, both of them looked like they were getting caught cold way too often. Curtis Jones obviously playing out of position. Robertson gets a deflection for the goal after already kind of giving the ball away. Defensively, it was really, really poor from Liverpool, and it was up to Fulham to capitalise on that, and man, they definitely did. I mean, you mentioned before we started recording that Muniz' goal was just sensational, wasn't it? That's how
beautiful
to beat Van Dijk. That's what you need in moments like that. That's how you beat a team like Liverpool. Those moments of magic that you can't always rely on every week, but when you can pull them out of the bag, great.
Yeah, that Muniz goal for my generation just reminds me slightly of Dennis Bergkamp against Newcastle, I think it was, flicking the ball past
generous
Dabby's ass, I think it was. That kind of level of, not skill necessarily, but the grace behind it was reminiscent. And I thought, Muniz has not had many chances this season either, but when he's been called upon, he's been brilliant. And that finish, Dave, was superb, wasn't it?
Did he mean it? That's the question you have to ask.
Of course he did. That quality, you don't...
That's what they would say about Bergkamp, though, isn't it?
It's easy making that comparison. If nobody's seen the Tommy Conway of Middlesbrough against Blackburn on Friday night, very similar sort of goal to Bergkamp's. So give it a watch if you've not seen it. But yeah, it was a great touch. Whether he fully meant it and it was just a bit of an instinctive sort of manoeuvre, I think, that he made. But yeah, it was great instinct, and how literally I would just turn around the corner. I think Van Dijk's got to be a bit stronger there and just do a little bit more to put a bit more pressure on the striker, because it just feels like he gave up a little bit too easily. But it got a little bit of luck, obviously. Kelleher was probably a little bit unlucky with the save, but yeah, I think it comes at a really good time for Fulham, because if we're being honest, they've had a couple of tough last couple of weeks. Obviously, getting knocked out of the cup, which I'm probably sure they probably won't have expected to happen in the manner that it did. So to pull this out of the bag, and what I think many will have not expected this result to pan out the way that it did, really.
Well, it was the goals, wasn't it, that was the difference. And Sessegnon has had this rebirth since he's gone back to Craven Cottage. He lashed his goal in like a centre forward as well. I thought that was beautiful to see. And again, this is not me saying this because it's Liverpool, just get that in there. They were just genuinely good goals. And McAllister's goal was good as well. I think he had a lot of space allowed for him. And I think Fulham probably should have taken the lead, actually. I think Konate got twisted and Fulham just didn't finish it early on in the game. But yeah, that and the Iwobi goal as well. Both brilliant. Like, it was a bit of a mini goal of the week session, wasn't it, from this game, Miles?
Yeah, that Konate moment you mentioned then, was that not a penalty?
I thought so, yeah.
That completely clattered him, but did not play the ball. Was that not a penalty?
It got looked at as well, didn't it? And
I
nothing
thought that
doing.
Was weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it won't be as bad as the one midweek that Ramsey was denied, but we won't go back into Villa chat for a second. But no, I thought that was a really odd decision. Yeah, you said about Sessegnon, Mike, and that's one that I think is really interesting, because it felt like that was a career that was destined for like huge things, and then, as with most things, it moves to Tottenham and it dies a slow death. So it's quite nice to see him rejuvenated, really, at a club like Fulham, because even at the start of the season, he's not starting games really. So he's coming to the side and he offers them quite a lot. Like he started as a left back, but his attacking prowess is brilliant. So he's really versatile, and if you can get him on top form and full fitness, that could be an excellent addition, really.
I think the goals were superb, but we have to talk about Liverpool, don't we? I mean, they're by far and away the standout team in the league this season, and the points on the board. I mean, this could have been a really unamountable lead, couldn't it, after Arsenal had dropped points? Still is, I think, with the amount of games left to go, Dave. But I think you argued the case, didn't you, Myles, that this might have been the poorest finish to a season. But maybe it is because they're so far ahead, Dave, that they are looking a little bit more frail and fragile. Maybe Van Dijk and Konate are just tired. Who knows? There's a lot of football being played, but Liverpool don't look like they did maybe 3 months ago, do they? And I'm not sure what's at the core of that. Has the cup exits and, you know, their season panning out to, I say, just the Premier League? It's still a huge deal, I think, to Scousers, isn't it, to win the league, clearly. But is that the reason why they're kind of fizzled out a little bit? That they've seen these multiple trophies just disappear and now it's the league and the league only? Do you think that's a psychological effect on them in some way?
Possibly. I think if you look at, the last 3 months or so, for me, I think they've just done enough in games. I don't think they've been convincing in a lot of the matches that they've won. You know, they're just fortunate they've got the match winners that they have, mainly Mo Salah, if we're being honest. You know, he's got to be their player of the season. He's literally pulled them through games single-handedly at times, if not scoring goals, creating them. And I think he's shown elements of his game that I think will probably have, raised a few eyebrows and made them realise actually he can be such a creative asset more than just scoring goals. And he's definitely made that known this season. I think if you look at the remaining games, there's definitely some difficult games in there. Obviously, you've got Chelsea away. They've still got to play Arsenal at home as well, Brighton away, and Palace at home. So it's not an easy run-in. So I think it's done. I think there's too many points involved, and then you're counting on Arsenal to win every single game virtually, which I don't think they will do. I don't think they've got the firepower to do it, and I don't think their squad's probably in the best shape it could be to go on and do it as well. So I'd love it to be a dramatic end to the season. I'd love there to be a twist, but I just don't think I can see it.
Yeah, there are twists, but maybe not at the very, very top of the league. And again, a lot of it depends on Arsenal, doesn't it? Staying pace, and with their injuries as well, that's proving difficult. And that's why it's a disappointing title race, really, isn't it? It's fizzled out really much earlier than expected. But we talked about teams in the rest of the top half of the table, haven't we? And the next game I want to talk about quickly for the best of the rest is Palace-Brighton. Mental game, a really weird game, but another one where we've seen Ebery Chiesa get 2 assists. Jean-Philippe Mateta, a great goal, another one contender for goal of the week. And 3 red cards that were both double yellows. There probably could have been a couple of them, an outright red as well. Bizarre game, wasn't it, Myles? But entertaining nonetheless.
Yeah, a great game to watch, particularly the second half when things started to get a bit chaotic. It's that weird derby that's not really a derby, but they treat it like a derby. And then the last 20 minutes definitely felt like a derby. Yeah, I think for Palace, obviously, a disappointing result midweek off the back of that excellent game in the FA Cup. Their season is already kind of cemented as a good season no matter what happens now. So to do the double over Brighton will be huge for them, and to have Mateta back scoring so early, that's a really big thing for them, because they want to be able to capitalise on the opportunities they've got in the domestic cup now, and they need their best players on form. And the way Mateta finished his chance, it looked like he'd not been away, didn't it? Like, there's no confidence lost there. You see some players come back from horror injuries, particularly if it's a head injury, and they don't want to put themselves about quite as much. They kind of shirk out challenges. He didn't, did he?
No, he didn't. He's one of them players, though, isn't he? Super combative, and he's got this ear protection now, which kind of makes him look like, I don't know, prime Petr Cech, doesn't he? Like, nothing can get past him. But yeah, I think to score so early was important for Mateta. And you look at the league table now, Dave, and Palace are, I think, a game in hand on Brighton. And if they win it, they're just a point behind them, which I think, considering the way Palace started this season, is crazy. So Palace are on the up, aren't they? But Brighton, I think Fabian Herzl will be disappointed by how inconsistent his team have been, I think, at stages. And obviously, the red card situation here doesn't help, even though it was so late in the game. But I think Brighton are just another one of a handful of teams who are very similar in quality. And I put Palace in that group as well, wouldn't you, Dave? But it's just a measure of how close it is in quality in that area of the league that Brighton are doing, not as badly as they are, but just as inconsistently. It's difficult to put runs together, as we've found.
Yeah, the gap's definitely closed, I think, from, if you look at mid-table or just below to up to the European places. There's clearly the gap is closed in quality. I think that is a measure of just how good the league has become. Even if you obviously look at the exception of probably the bottom 3 sides that are in it now. Other than that, I mean, I include even Wolves in that. We've got some top players in there, some real talent. Then I think it's just got a lot better, and I think they started to take more points off of some of the bigger teams. I think it's a combination of some of the European challenging teams and the title competitor, whether you can include Arsenal having a title challenge or not this season. It's up to you, I suppose. I think it's a bit of both. I think that the lack of title competitors and obviously the improvement of some of the sides mid-table around some of these teams, I think it is a combination of both. I don't think it is that the league overall has not been as good. I just think you look at some of these teams now, you know, the likes of Palace, Brighton, you know, a few weeks ago we were talking about them having maybe even mounting a Champions League challenge, and obviously that's not come to fruition, along with Bournemouth struggled the last few weeks, if we're being honest. I just think it's a really difficult league to play in now, if we're being honest. I think that's the joy that a lot of people have watching it, is that a lot of these teams now have got some of the talent that we've got on show. I think there's always a possibility of an upset in some of these games. But yeah, I think Palace now, I think you look at the start of the season, I don't think you can imagine they'd be where they are now, because we really worried for them, didn't we, at the start?
Yeah, I tell you, which fans will concur that it's a difficult league. Southampton's and Ipswich's as well. Obviously, Southampton confirmed as relegated after their 3-1 defeat to Tottenham, and I think all to play for now is that they don't finish as the worst Premier League team in history.
This is the earliest relegation in Premier League history. I didn't realise
it feels warranted though, doesn't it? I mean, Southampton have been woeful.
That is. Yeah.
Those in Ipswich obviously lost 2-1 to Wolves as well, which makes the gap 12 points between those two teams. And again, those two sides, and Leicester will play on Monday as well against Newcastle, and they look doomed. The run is horrendous under Ruud van Nistelrooy. The quality at the bottom is pretty poor as well. Is this the worst trio we've seen? I mean, even like last season with Luton, they seemed to be fighting until the very end, but this season it's been woeful, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's way worse. It's way worse. And I think Ipswich fans will be so frustrated because they obviously get that win midweek against Bournemouth, and you think, oh, hang on a minute, green shoots, and this game they had to win. So to be leading in it as well at home, frustrating, because I think we all had a lot of goodwill towards Ipswich, and I think Kieran McKenna is obviously a coach that a lot of us rate highly. There's players in that team that we think look encouraging, but ultimately they're so far off the pace, defensively in particular. The lack of shape that their defence has, and they've leaked goals at times and silly goals. They're never going to be able to sustain it, and you wonder what next season brings. Whoever comes up from the Championship, because I know there's still a bit of competition there, are any of them going to be good enough to? Because we've taken 2 years in a row now where the 3 promoted sides have gone down. That had never happened before, and now all of a sudden it looks pretty much set two seasons going. What it's going to take? Because Dave's just been talking about how the quality in the league generally is improved, and even teams like Wolves, who were sort of in the relegation picture for a period of time, or Everton, they're miles above it. They're miles above it. Are Burnley or Sheffield United going to mount a proper challenge to stay in the league, or Leeds, whoever it might be? Are they going to have enough next year?
Well, it makes you wonder at the level of investment they would need, because Ipswich spent a fair bit, didn't they? Obviously, Leicester have got financial restrictions themselves, but Southampton spent a fair bit as well, I think, for their level. Some of the players they bought, like Harwood Bellis, they spent a small fortune on him. Ramsdale, who's relegated for the 3rd time in 5 years, which is mental. The quality is huge between the Premier League and the Championship. And I don't doubt we'll see the same yo-yoing again next season. But the quality just above them is a lot better. I think that's just the way relegation works now. You're by far the worst teams in the league, you'll get relegated. But the teams above them, just want a quick mention on some of the other results as well. West Ham 2, Bournemouth 2. Obviously, Bournemouth are going to finish comfortably mid-table. Evan Nielsen with a brace in this game. But West Ham, I don't know their level, Myles. Do you? Obviously, Nicholas Fulcrew played pretty well in this game and scored. But have you seen anything you like about West Ham this season under Graham Potter?
Do you remember at the start of the season when I said I thought they'd finish top 6?
Yeah, I did. I'm trying not to mention that, mate. I'm trying to look at them now. I forget that was even something we talked about.
What has happened to West Ham? Why are they so bad?
Yeah.
I mean, all right, maybe this is the wrong time to say it. Fulcrum being back would be huge for them, and his injury this season is definitely had an effect. Plus Antonio as well. They've lacked a number 9. I mean, Ferguson came in January and he's not done anything yet. Potter's record is very meh since he came in, really, but given the summer, we'll see what he can do to try and actually engage something that resembles his own side, I suppose. You look at him and Vitor Pereira and David Moyes, who have all kind of come in at similar sort of times, at clubs at similar sort of levels. I think he's probably done the worst out of them. Is that fair to say?
I think so, yeah. But the resources he's got in terms of squad, West Ham are a good squad, aren't they? And that's why you tip them for bigger things. So, I think...
I don't know what's going on with West Ham. I don't know what's going on with them. What will next season look like for West Ham? More of the same? Are they going to be in the bottom
Depends
6
on a lot.
next year?
The quality around that area of the league and above them is so high that you just don't know. So I think more of the same, like mediocrity. Bit like Man United and Man City, Dave. Hey, that game was a poor game. We touched on it earlier, didn't we? We won't talk about the game itself, really, but more about this weird build-up to it being not really that big a deal for either party, and not really much quality in the game itself. But I think for me, it raises questions about United's forward line. I think that's what we'll talk about before we wrap up this pod. We've been saying in our group chat how Garnacho has really declined in recent weeks. Obviously, Højlund, Xerxes not scoring, very little goal scoring support for even Bruno Fernandes, who seems to be digging us out so often. But Garnacho in particular, Dave, there's been some talks of him being sold to balance the books a little bit, and I'm really against that because he's still very young and still talented. Is this just a blip in form, or is he actually reverting to type now? Is Garnacho just not a very good player?
I don't think he's not a good player. I think there's a player in there. I think he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's virtually the main attacking threat we've got, which is really kind of paints a picture of the club that United are at the minute. That is shocking to me, that a young kid has basically got the pressure of carrying that Man United attack. If you're excluding Bruno Fernandes and saying he's mainly a midfielder, then he is at the minute, because obviously Ahmad's out injured, who was probably our brightest spark all season.
Also a kid though.
Also a kid. It's a very young attack. If you look at it, there isn't any real kind of senior attackers in there. You look at there's to come in and really put an arm around the shoulder and give them that sort of advice and encouragement. I think they need, and that's what the club lacks: leaders. If we're being honest. So I do feel for him. I do really sympathise with this. We've seen how bright he can be in games and how threatening he can. I don't know if he's quite right for this system, if I'm being honest, in one of those number 10 positions. Obviously, there's plenty of time to adjust to that and make that adaptation. But yeah, it's not nice to see him get the kind of criticism, because I don't think it's deserving. I don't think it's just, if I'm being honest. Even though I can be sat there watching the game and throwing my hands in the air, like obviously question these decisions that some of the players are making on the pitch.
Yeah.
But we've been bad for so long. I mean, we've not won consecutive games this season in the Premier League. That is ridiculous. So really, I don't think you can put too much. I don't think you can criticise him too much, if I'm being honest.
That poor guy at the United strand, his hair's like up here now, isn't it? He's just never going to get it cut at this rate, is he?
I think it's fantastic.
I won't dwell on Garnacho too much, but your 2 pence worth, Myles. I mean, you were bemoaning how just poor his passing was. He just didn't pass, really. He kept losing the ball in this game.
He lost the ball every time he got it, it felt like. And it just feels that him and Højlund had so much promise. And Dave's right, now there's a system in place that probably doesn't suit either of them, and neither of them are showing what kind of prospects they were. I hate to come back to it, and it sounds like obvious Villa bias now, but Rashford would be doing better than Garnacho. He would. He'd be doing better than both of them. You can't tell me that if Rashford was playing every game for Man United right now, he would be on the same non-goal scoring runs that those two forwards are on. He just wouldn't be. Mm. And there are options there. I'm not saying he's the perfect player for Man United, and I'm glad that he's not there. But there's clearly a lot that needs to be done. And obviously he was hindered in January with how much he could do. Financially, there's a lot of pressure on this club to make the right decisions next, because they've made so many calamitous ones previously. So when it comes to, do we cash in on Garnacho or not, that's the other debate. Because, yeah, he might not suit this system right now, but is Amorim going to be there long enough that actually, is he an asset worth holding on to for the next coach? Or do you trust, yes, we'll sell Garnacho, but what are you going to do with the money? Are you going to be able to bring someone in of the kind of quality that you need? Because actually, this system with 2 10s, if Bruno stays, and Mount actually looks all right the last couple of games, if he can stay fit in that role, that could be quite good if you go and get a good clinical number 9 in the summer. If you go and get Osimhen, I think that's a great idea. Someone more experienced, you're not relying on him. He's kind of at his peak already, so you're not waiting. You've got someone that would just be there to finish chances. Then, yeah, fine. If you can do a deal with Napoli, because I know they were interested in Garnacho in January, that would probably make sense to me. Short of that, what's the point?
Do you think
that's so silly?
Do you think it would have been made a massive difference if they got a proper striker? Because I know there was a lot of talk of them being interested in Harry Kane, wasn't there, before we went to Bayern Munich?
Yeah, I think so.
They ended up going with Bayern. Do you think it? Because we have struggled to create, like, even without the striker.
Kane's the anomaly there because he creates for himself as well. Yeah. I do think as well, you see that Bruno is so much better when other players are on form. Yeah, like when there's someone good next to him, he's able to produce a lot more. If you're talking elite level strikers, if you'd gone and got Harry Kane, of course. Like, I honestly think you'd be better off of having kept Ronaldo at this stage. Even at his age now, playing in Saudi, I still think he would be better for this team than a lot of the forwards that you've had are. Because, yes, you aren't always creating amazing things, but when the ball does get into the box, I feel like Højlund panics. I'd be starting Xerxes over him right now. I think Xerxes brings more to the team at the moment.
He does,
his hold-up is a lot better. His passing ability is a lot better. And he plays deeper when he needs to, which should be the thing that unlocks the wide players going forward. I thought he made a difference when he came on, actually.
It feels like Hoyland's even second-guessing himself now, though.
He does.
His normal instincts, I think, that probably a true striker would show. Like some of the runs I think he made today, or some of the runs he didn't make. Like there is an instance, I think, where Dorgu crossed into the box, and you'd think a striker ghosting in from sort of like around the back post, or should be making the movement towards the front post to meet it, but he didn't. He didn't even look to run across the front post, and you just think like that's just like if you're a striker, you're just taught that at a very basic level.
Yeah, his confidence is shot though, and it's funny because you look at some of the players down the bottom of the league. I think one of you two mentioned Liam Delap in the chat earlier. Like, is that someone that you could go and get in the summer? Absolutely, because he does have the confidence, despite the fact he's playing in quite a difficult team, really, that aren't going to create loads, but he'll create things for himself, and he's clinical. So when you do get the odd opportunity to your number 9, you need to have the confidence that they will put it away. You don't feel like that with Højlund at the moment, and it doesn't help when Garnacho is one of the main attacking threats, and his attacking output is just so poor. Honestly, every time he had it today, he either overhit a cross or he overran it and got tackled. Every single time.
I think that's the thing, is you don't know what you're going to get with him when he gets the ball. I think it's quite predictable because you've got Dorgu in there now, makes the overlap. I didn't think he had a great first half. I thought he was a much better second half, if I'm being honest. But he makes that run over and over, and he never gets the ball, never gets a pass. So I think the opposition always know that he's going to cut inside or try and create something himself or have a shot. It's just there's no team. There's such a lack of a team play for me from that front line. There's no cohesion whatsoever.
Which is funny because actually watching this game for the first time in ages, I thought I saw patterns of play in Man United. The way they were playing out from the back and through the midfield, I was going, oh, that's actually quite encouraging. And then as soon as it got to the final third, something stupid happened. Every single time. That one where he basically headed it into his own knee, where he just should have just volleyed it at the back post.
Yeah, that was a great chance. That was the best chance, I think.
To that play was excellent. And it was, Dalot gets a little bit lucky because his touch kind of falls under his studs. But the cross is brilliant, and the play leading up to it looked like what Amarin's trying to achieve with his side.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
There are some green shoots if you can sort out that forward line, which is funny because I feel like we go through spells with Man United where we go, oh, the defence is shocking, you've got to sort the defence out. There's no one in the midfield, and now it's, well, hang on a minute, what's going on at the top? It's bizarre.
I think with that, it just sinks in. I watched the Villa game last night. I think when you look for Villa's 2 goals, like just the decisiveness they've got in those patterns in the final third. They are decisive in those moments, and they know exactly what they're going to do. Like, it doesn't seem like those United attackers genuinely know what they're going to do when they get the ball in those positions. There's a massive lack of experience there. We know that, but that is not good enough for a club like United. Then we need better than that.
I see what you're saying.
Sorry, just quickly, perfect point on what Dave's just said, and I had this conversation with Arsenal fans as well. There was obvious gaps in United's team in January and in Arsenal's team in January in those attacking positions, and Villa have gone out and got, all right, you're not going to get Rashford because you wanted rid of him, but and Asensio and Marlon for very little. Why weren't Man United looking at Asensio if he was available? That perfect player for this Amorim system, a number 10 that can drift wide. That would have been an excellent signing for them. Or Arsenal. Both these players were available in January, and Villa managed to do it on quite quiet business and not really put too much of a financial output to get them in. There are teams that were screaming out for him. Now, obviously, it's worked out great for me, but if I'm a United fan, I'm going, look, you don't need to be spending 100 million on Antony. There is value in the market somewhere. You just got to go and find it. And instead, they waited till deadline day to then talk about Leon Bailey, apparently. Well, again, not really the player that United need.
It seemed like the only likely signing we were banking on was getting Mateta Tel on loan, and I mean he's not even playing for Spurs, is he?
And again, would have been the wrong player.
Yeah, I think it would have been. Yeah,
but we still don't have a player statistics team or anything like that to analyse player data or anything like that, which I find mad at this day and age. So it's a lot of work still to do at United, but I think it's harsh what Roy Keane said that. Amorim was saying you could see things improving and there were good passages of play and good possession and things like that. And I think Keane was basically dismissive of that, saying, what does that even mean? But I see what he means. And I think you kind of touched on it, Myles, didn't you? That it's just the finishing touch that's lacking. And if that was there, you'd say, what a great passage of play. What a great footing United are on. So there is progress. But I'm going to try and move away from United chat because we could go on and finish on a quick preview of Villa's Champions League venture. Obviously straddling that your Southampton voucher this season is the legs against PSG, and it's nerve-wracking, isn't it? This is the biggest, I think, Villa game in my generation, and watching them will be nerve-wracking for me as a neutral, I think, because I know how much is riding on this, and also how much a result in this first leg will mean. It will really put Villa on a strong footing, because PSG have played pretty well. Like in recent games against Liverpool, they played some brilliant football and some great young players, so it's a real test for Villa. But if they can even go into this with a draw, would you be happy with that? What's your expectation? What's your hope?
I would snap your hand off for a draw at the Parc des Princes.
Knew
now.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah, give me 0-0 all day. Look, it's weird because you are right. It's one of the biggest games. It's definitely one of the biggest games in the club's modern history. That and the playoff final that we got promoted, because that kind of gave us the club back. But there is equally no expectation, really. Like, come on, we can't talk about this as like, yeah, this is something that we think Villa have got a really good chance. We probably don't, if we're totally honest. But what you've got to hope for is we've got an excellent coach who knows how to manage European fixtures. There might be an element of Paris underestimating us and not knowing enough about us, although in the modern era I don't think that's as much of a thing, because you probably see everything. And yeah, we have used the squad well around the fixture, so hopefully we won't be too burnt out. Like getting some rest in for the likes of like Ezri Konsa, who's played every game since he signed for Villa. It feels like that's a huge thing. So yeah, I don't know. I keep psyching myself up and going, actually, I think we might do it, and then go, no, come on, don't be ridiculous. I'm very glad the second leg is at Villa Park. I think it's a really good thing to have that second leg at home, as long as you are still in the tie. So I would absolutely take us going and trying to get a 0-0. I'll be honest. And look, we've got players of the quality that can hurt PSG. We've got defensive players that can contain them. I mean, Martinez seems to be a man possessed in the Champions League. His save percentage is ridiculous in the competition this year. So he'll be really up for it. And in France, and he's obviously got a bit of a thing against the French after the World Cup final. I think that there is a lot riding on it, but I'm just so excited for it. I can't believe we're having this conversation about Villa PSG as a Champions League quarter final. Feels like one of my FIFA saves. It doesn't feel real still.
It's very real, and I think it's juxtaposed against Man United's performances as well, which we've literally just talked about. This podcast has seen a whole sea change, hasn't it, in the 4 years we've been doing it. But I think I hate seeing these English fans kind of cheering on fellow English teams that aren't their club in Europe. I don't agree with that at all. I never cheer on Chelsea. I never cheer on Arsenal. But I'll make an exception for Villa, I think, because if they win against PSG, I bloody hate PSG to begin with. But if they beat them, I will be buzzing for you and buzzing for Villa, because it's a club that's going places, isn't it, Dave? And last word from you, Dave. Looking forward to the Champions League games before we go.
Can't wait, and I'm looking forward to the Arsenal Real Madrid game as well, if I'm being honest. I think that'll be a fantastic tie, and I think Arsenal will be looking forward to that. And Real Madrid obviously didn't win this weekend, did they? On the back of a loss, so I think there's some mouth-watering fixtures. I think there's nothing to lose for Villa. I think I think it was Alan Smith who was on commentary about Villa saying their game against Forest was bigger than the PSG game coming up. I just thought, how? That's the competition they're fighting to get in, that they're in now. That's not the bigger game. That's a stepping stone to, the biggest games in Europe. What they're in, I think they've got every right to be proud, no matter what the result is. I think over these two games, like, they've had such a good run and probably exceed expectations, I think, of a lot of fans. If they can, get into a position where in that second leg, get to the second leg and they're still in with a shout, they'll more than take that. They've got the players to do it, if we're being honest now. I think it's fascinating to see how they'll set up. I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, we'll leave it.
I can't work out how they're going to set up, to be honest.
I was going to say, we'll leave it there, but you're still going. You still want to talk about Villa?
Sorry. This is what it is. Come on, you've got to let me have some minutes on this. This is the biggest game of my life. No, it's true what Dave says. I don't know how they're going to set up, because recently he's changed things more than I'm used to. And Rashford playing down the middle has really thrown me. Because he's played Rashford as a number 9 a couple of times recently.
And grown in
instead
confidence.
Of Watkins, because of Watkins' fitness, I think. But then, all of a sudden he looks great there. And I don't know who he'll go with. I genuinely don't know who he'll start with. Or whether he tries to get both in. But then that's a struggle. I think the good thing is, no matter what happens, Dave's right. Every player comes out of this campaign with credit in the bank, and they will be better in European competition next year if we qualify from this experience.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, it feels like this should be the semi-final at this stage of the season. I think because we talk about the fact we're in the FA Cup semi-final and the league has only got 7 games left. It's really weird to me that we've got 2 Champions League games left, and even if we got through that, we'd still have another round before the final. I feel like I'm over that now. I just want to get there.
I don't know whether that performance from Matson will have made Emre
another
think.
One.
To be honest, because I still don't know about that left-hand side. I think Jacob Ramsey's done well since he's come back from that injury so long out. But I just think the security I think Matson probably gives you on that left-hand side. Maybe he'll even think about going to a back 3 potentially.
I hope not. I really hope he doesn't do a back 3 because we've done that a couple of times and it never works. Like, yes, sometimes you want to change your system based on the opponent, but we don't do well with a back 3. I think he'll play Luka Dean. I hope he plays Luka Dean because Matson offers you so much going forward. It is exciting, but down that right hand side, you got to remember they're competing against definitely Hakimi and probably Dembele. Or if Dembele plays centrally, then you've got Kvaratskhelia that can go out on that side as well. We're gonna have a lot to worry about in that position. So I would be really surprised if it wasn't Luka Dean. And I think that might suit Ramsey. I think it might be Ramsey that starts on the left because he does a lot of defensive work as well.
Yeah. Agreed.
Do you think he looks at it and thinks Torres is going to start with Konsa, or do you think it's going to be Mings? Do you think?
I think he'll be Torres and Konsa, if I'm honest. As long as he thinks Torres is fit enough, then it will be Torres and Konsa, and it'll be Kamara in front of him, which is a shame for Mings because I think he's probably earned it recently. Torres does really turn up in the Champions League games as well. He's been fantastic this season in the Champions League. I mean, you look at him against Bayern, he was incredible. So I think he'll probably do the same again.
Well, with Villa's goal difference in the league now being 0, they're actually on positive footing for goals now. And I think that'll be the key to this tie. I think attack will be the best form of defence in some ways for Villa because you can hurt PSG. I really do think that's the case. But we will wrap it up there, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will talk about whatever happens in that first leg, no doubt, next week. So please join us then. But for 1 week only, thank you, guys, and up the Villa.
Hey, I love that. I've got that out of you.
Take it easy, guys. See you soon.
See ya.